Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and talk about things that are going on, a better explain what's going on, and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. So this video comes from Plainsboro, New Jersey. Now, New Jersey does things a little bit different when it comes to fatal encounters involving the police. At least since 2019, I don't believe that there's been any individual agencies in New Jersey to release footage or critical incident type of videos. 2019 laws changed in New Jersey, and they basically put responsibility to the Attorney General's office to investigate all fatal police encounters and to release footage and information in regards to these incidents for transparency purposes. Now, as far as before 2019, I don't know. I can't recall very well. Remember seeing anything out of New Jersey before 2019. I'm sure there probably has been. But I know at least since 2019, it's basically the Attorney General's office that releases all these videos. Now, when they release these videos, they don't do a typical critical incident briefing type video. There's no spokesperson to explain what's going on. There's no slides or anything like that with information on them. It's just raw footage. There's multiple files. I think there's 2 car cameras, 4 body cameras, and 2 taser cams. So I think there's 8 video files for this incident. And there's no information associated with them. The only information we have is a news release, which I will read now. Plainsboro, New Jersey. The Attorney General's office released video footage from 4 body-worn cameras, 2 mobile video recorders in law enforcement vehicles, and 2 taser cameras related to a fatal police-involved shooting that occurred on February 16th, 2022 in Plainsboro, New Jersey. The deceased has been identified as Atiba Lewis, 45, of Plainsboro. The officer who fired at Mr. Lewis has been identified as Officer Philip Nguyen of Middlesex County Sheriff's Office. The fatal shooting remains under investigation by the Office of Public Integrity and Accountability. And then it talks about the 2019 law, so blah, blah, blah. According to preliminary investigation, the shooting occurred shortly after 11:30 a.m. on February 16. A civil order for possession, eviction, ejection had been authorized to remove Mr. Lewis from an apartment on Ravenscrest Drive in Plainsboro. The Middlesex County Sheriff's Office executed the order with assistance from other law enforcement agencies on the morning of February 16. Later that same morning, law enforcement officers sought and executed a search warrant for an unlawful firearm at Mr. Lewis's residence. So what that sounds like to me is they went to serve this eviction notice. I guess they made entry into this apartment, found a gun, and then decided to back out, wait, get a search warrant to make everything, fully legal and everything, go back in there and get it. Because the guy was not there when they served the eviction notice, or tried to serve the eviction notice. Law enforcement executed the order and search warrant while Mr. Lewis was out of the apartment. At approximately 11:30 a.m., after Mr. Lewis had arrived back at the apartment complex, law enforcement officers attempted to arrest him for unlawful possession of the firearm. So, I don't think New Jersey has friendly gun laws, so I don't know if it's just a bullshit. He's unregistered and he can't have it, or if this dude has prior convictions. Now, based off how the dude's acting later on in the video, which you'll see, it kind of makes me believe that he has prior convictions and he's just not someone who's able to legally possess a firearm. When the officers approached Mr. Lewis, he pulled out a knife and ran away from them. He continued to threaten the officers with the knife. 4 officers deployed tasers in an attempt to disarm Mr. Lewis, but the tasers were ineffective. Mr. Lewis was agitated and lunged at officers several times. At approximately 11:35 a.m., with a knife in his hand, Mr. Lewis advanced directly toward Officer Nagayan, who then fired his weapon, fatally wounding Mr. Lewis. Officers and emergency medical personnel rendered first aid to Mr. Lewis, who was transported to Princeton Hospital, where he was pronounced deceased at 12:10 p.m. And then the rest of the news release, again, talks about that law that I mentioned earlier. So, without further ado, here is the first video. Nothing wrong with your audio. This is an Axon fleet camera, so it's in buffering mode until the record gets hit. So these can be turned on by activating the emergency equipment and it turns the camera on, or the body camera syncs with the car, and as soon as you turn the body camera on, it turns the vehicle camera on. We should get sound here soon. Alright, so that's a whole group of officers. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think there's a 10 over there. Yep, 10 so far. 11, 12.
Taser deployed, taser deployed.
Alright, so let's pause this. This dude's right here in the middle of the road. Visually, this kind of reminds me of videos where they release the bull in the street and it just goes off going down the road, and like people are trying to come up to it, and it, you know, people get in its way, and it turns, and then they scatter and they move away. Visually, this is what this kind of reminds me of. This dude, they were chasing him, then he turns around, then they all fucking spread apart and get away from him. Understandably so, because he has a knife in his hand. So, 12 officers at least I can see there. Some people may think, oh, there's 12 of them, you know, they could easily take this guy. I mean, yeah, there's going to be enough people to physically control him, but he has a knife in his hand. You could have 4 officers approach from different angles to take him down, and all he has to do is get one lucky swing in. One lucky swing. And that knife is going into someone's throat, and their carotid is going to be severed, and they're going to die. So just because there's a crap ton of officers here does not mean that they have the advantage at this point. None of them can physically get close to him because he has that knife in his hand. In the news article, it talks about tasers being deployed 4 times, and there being no effect. And you hear on the radio, taser deployed. So winter time is a crappy time for tasers to work. Mainly because people have thick jackets on and or multiple layers of thicker clothing. So I think he has a jacket and a sweater kind of hoodie thing on, and probably more stuff under that. When people have that kind of clothing on, it causes clothing disconnects for the taser probes. Now, if this guy had been wearing a t-shirt and they deployed taser on him, I suspect that they probably would have had a higher increased chance of a taser having the desired effect. But because he has this thick jacket on and thick undergarments under it, I believe it's caused a clothing disconnect. Now, Taser, or Axon, created the green doors cartridges. So the cartridges come with, they used to come in many different colors, but now it's just basically yellow and green. The green doors are their quote-unquote law enforcement only door cartridges, and those are XP cartridges for extra penetration. And they were designed to help fight this problem with winter clothing, and they have a a longer set of wires in them compared to the yellow cartridge. But even with a specially designed cartridge having probes that are a little bit longer, there's still a failure rate, because mostly the darts on the probe, they just cannot be that long, or else it can then increase its chances of being not a less lethal weapon. The probes have to be long enough to be able to penetrate skin, go into the fibers under the skin, the tissues under it, and the little barb will catch into those tissues under your skin and prevent it from just easily falling out. But it cannot be too long, or else it has the potential of, say you fire into the chest or back, it could go past the ribs and then go into important organs. So you don't want that. So they're limited on how long they can be. And when it comes to wintertime and people wearing clothing, that's a disadvantage because they're just not long enough. When it comes to wintertime, I think that pepper spray can be a more effective tool, especially when people have thicker clothing on. Now, if it's, they got like a thin shirt on or something like that, yeah, taser could have a higher increased chance of being successful. But when you come across someone with a thick jacket and a big ass hoodie underneath it, like, your chances of having a successful taser deployment are pretty slim. And so at that point, pepper spray, I think, should be the first thing to be considered. Now, pepper spray does have its limitations. Wind can blow it back to you. So in some situations, it can be useful to use. Other situations, the wind can be blown right back to you, and it's not going to be in your favor. There's multiple of them here. Some of them could have attempted to grab less lethals out of the vehicles if they had them. I don't know anything about these agencies, so I don't know if they have 40 millimeter launchers. I don't know if they have 12 gauge beanbag or pepper ball guns or bola wraps. I have no idea what they have in their vehicles. They may not have none of that. But if they did have some of those things, then I think they should have at least had some people grab them. I also think that because they found a gun in this dude's apartment during the eviction notice and they were going to arrest him, that they should have also had some officers with rifles out. Because just because he has one gun in the apartment doesn't mean that that's his one and only gun. He could have more guns on him. And when you're going to go up against a person who is known to have guns, and you're going to be taking them into custody, then you know that there's a possibility they may want to fight. And especially if they have any prior history, which, like I said, I think he does, based off the fact how many freaking officers are there. And so if you know, or there's a high increased risk that person can have a gun, that's a more of a high risk type of incident. And high risk incidents like that dictate that you need a long gun. If you know you're going to a gunfight, bring a rifle and bring your friends with rifles. So, we don't see anybody with rifles, which I think is bad. We don't see anyone else with less lethals, which I can't say is bad because I don't know if they have them in those cars or not. And the same could be said about rifles, because there are some places that just don't put rifles in the cars, but that's a lot less likely than, them not having less lethals in there. So, because they're more likely to have rifles, I'm going to say that the first bad thing I'm seeing is no rifles out. Second thing is no less lethals out, but that's kind of an iffy one because, like I said, I can't say they had them or not. And then the third bad thing, probably the most glaringly bad thing, is how they are surrounding him at this point. If any one of them had to start using deadly physical force against this guy, the potential for crossfire is extremely high. They're basically doing a a 360 around him. And if this guy right here has to shoot, which based off this image, if he shoots and he misses and or a round goes through this guy, he could potentially hit this guy back here. Or as the positions change, he can end up hitting these people over here. So I don't think they had really good positioning at this point. Let's move on. Come on, play.
Crazy. Shots fired, shots fired. Central, 7 plus. And ALS. Immediately.
All right, let's back that up. So
Shots
3
fired.
rounds fired, it sounds like. How many of those hit? I don't know. I would like to think that all 3 hit, but based off, prior history of these kinds of incidents, there's going to be missed rounds in these kinds of incidents, or there's a high chance of there being missed rounds. But I don't have any information to indicate how many rounds went into him, and I have no information on where exactly these rounds hit and what kind of damage they did. Obviously, it was fatal, so from there you could assume that one went into his heart or maybe one went into his aorta, but nothing to support that.
Shots fired. Central, 7 plus. And ALS. Immediately.
So over in that part of the woods, they say ALS. ALS stands for Advanced Life Support. That's just their way of saying, send an ambulance. Each area is a little bit different across the nation on how they refer to an ambulance. They also say bus, so that's something that you'll hear on that part of the side of the country. They'll say we need a bus or something to that effect. Other places they may use a 10 code that is in reference to the medical provider or the ambulance service. They may say send us a 1047. In some places that means an ambulance. Other places they may use a different 10 code, or they may use the name or acronym for that ambulance company. Send us Life Care, if that's a damn name, or if it's an area where the fire department also doubles as the actual ambulance provider, they might just say, send fire. It varies across the nation. So the bullets don't have a problem with going through clothing like taser probes do. So obviously the rounds have had the desired effect in stopping the threat. Now they're going through providing medical care. Let me back that up. So he has a pretty good sized medical bag that he's pulling out of the back of his car. Each car should have a trauma bag in it that's going to have, a lot more additional stuff. And he's also, this guy just brought a big one there.
If anybody can update me, please, for EMS. Central, shots fired. Suspect shot, officer okay? To the bus. Rachel, they're on their way. Are any of us hit?
So they're dragging him away from the car to give them more room to be able to work on him. Just because you find someone in one position doesn't mean they have to stay in that position for you to work on them. You can move them to make it easier on you. It may be a long drag, but they also have the option of dragging them over here to the grass. That way, when they're on their knees, they can stay down for a longer period of time. Some people just can't stay on the ground long enough on their knees to be that useful. The knees start wearing out pretty quickly, etc. So even something as simple and basic, and maybe to some people they see it as goofy, just moving them to the grass can actually cause them to receive better medical care because a person is not getting fatigued too much from being on the ground. Like me, I can't be on hard surfaces very long on my knees. It kills me. Other people, not so much, but it's going to be dependent on each individual person. A good thing I think to have with the trauma bag is either knee pads or a pad type of thing to be able to lay down and work on. Most certainly, if you can have it with an AED, that would be great too, because if you're having to get AED out for someone, you're going to be on the ground there for a while doing CPR on someone. And it's just going to make it more comfortable for the people doing it. If you've never had to do CPR on someone, it takes a while. You can be down there for a hot minute, and if you can keep a person on the ground for a longer period of time, the better.
I'm en route.
So you kind of notice how he is doing the CPR right there. Let me back it up just a little bit.
3-5, I'm en route.
So that's kind of like an awkward position to be doing CPR. Now, why is he doing that? One, he may have problem with being on his knees on asphalt. Or B, he may not want to be putting his knees in the ground where this dude's blood is at. So that's why I said I think that knee pads are a decent idea for having attached to a medical or a trauma bag or something like that. That way, someone's going to have a bunch of blood around them and you're on your knees. One, you're not, making it easier for that blood to get onto you. And if you're going to be on your knees and on the ground, you have a possibility of ripping your pants, moving around on the ground and causing an abrasion or a tear within the skin. Well, if you do that to yourself and then bad guy's blood gets onto that area, you now have an exposure. And you have to assume that everyone has something bad, right? You got to assume that they have the HIV, the AIDS, the hepatitis, whatever. And when it comes to people who make very bad decisions like this in life, this is not their one and done kind of bad decision in life. Like, people who get to this point have very likely had a series of bad decisions in life. And some of those bad decisions may have included sharing needles with someone else, having unprotected sex with questionable people. And so therefore, they may have a more increased likelihood of actually having some type of disease. So, if you can attach knee pads to a trauma bag, or you can get it's like a rectangle kind of shaped knee pad plank, I guess you could call it. Get those from like Home Depot or places like that. It's just meant for like people doing floor work or whatever. It's something to provide relief on the knees. So you get the benefit of, one, protecting your knees from that pain of being on that ground for very long, and two, you create a bit of a barrier between you and any blood that may be pooling out of that person. Alright, let's go to the next video. Alright, here is the second video. I don't know why this particular video includes the playback screen. I don't know. I guess that's just the way they did it. The other one obviously didn't have all this extra stuff in it. But we still get to see some stuff going on in this one. This is almost basically the same stuff that we already seen. It's just from a bit of a different angle. And it starts it a little bit, I guess you could say, sooner of the encounter versus the other one. Or earlier. I don't want to say sooner. It starts a little bit earlier than the other one. So you can see this guy kind of roaming around the street. I'm guessing this is pretty close to his apartment, and he's probably noticed all the police cars there. He's probably backed away at this point, and the officer who's noticed him is potentially calling on the other officers. Hey, Mr. Lewis is here now. You can see some of these officers approaching from the side parking lot over here. So that kind of makes me think or support my idea where I think that this guy had noticed him and was waiting for the others to arrive. We also see some people not wearing a traditional uniform. So he's got like what looks like blue jeans on, a plaid shirt under this vest and jacket here. So that also makes me think that this dude is just someone who's been involved in the system multiple times. They know that, he's unstable. Probably, he's been a threat before. He's known to carry guns. So these people they're here. They're ready for this guy's shenanigans.
Shot fire, shot fire. Location. Rain Sport Drive, Rain Crest Drive. Yes, we're shot fire, Rain Crest Drive.
So he looked like he had a big ass party bag of gloves, which is good, keeping gloves in the car, having a whole bunch of extra sets. But it looked like this guy was dependent upon this dude on getting a pair of gloves. That's a problem to me. If you're going to be in this line of work, you should always have a pair of gloves on you. And in fact, you should have 2 pairs of gloves on you. Duty gear manufacturers produce glove pouches to go on your duty belt. And I think all of them produce one that is capable of holding 2 pairs of gloves. The gloves are also very lightweight and compressible. And so just simply sticking them in your fucking pocket can work if you're too damn cheap to get a damn glove pouch. There's really no excuse whatsoever for not carrying gloves. I mean, basically, if you're not carrying gloves, you're just being a lazy shit. That's it. I mean, that's plain and simple. You're being a lazy shit. You should know by now in this line of work that people are fucking nasty, right? Like, even if they aren't covered in blood, like, some people are just dirty and fucking nasty. And it's best to touch these people when you have gloves on. And when people do have blood on them, you want gloves on, right? And then, even if it's not dealing with people who are dirty or got blood on them, you're law enforcement. You do shit like collect evidence. Maybe if you collect evidence, you don't want to leave your fucking fingerprints on them or your DNA. Right? Right. So these cops who don't carry gloves on them, like, where the hell have you been at your entire fucking career? Like, are you that fucked up of a person? Like, come on now.
Yeah. What's up? Yeah, I'll block it down there.
All right, so this one's going to end pretty soon. So I like how, we saw one person run here through the middle with a bag, and then we see him get a big bag out and him get a big bag out. So it looks like they have a pretty good assortment of medical stuff. So that's great. I'll talk about medical when it gets to one of the body cam footages, and we can see more stuff going on. But we'll end this one and go on to the next. All right, so here is the body cam footage from the in-car camera video that you just watched. So again, it seems like to me that they had been sitting there for some period of time waiting to move in on this guy. They were just waiting for additional units to get up there to them. The camera is in buffer mode right now, which to me, if they know that they're about to go grab this guy up or attempt to, they should already have the cameras set to record. They're about to go hands on. So it just makes sense to me to already have it recording. The cameras are there to help, and they can help. They can help exonerate you when the other party or the other party's surviving family is making shit up. So let's talk about positioning. I talked about positioning a little bit earlier. So the vehicles, they saw them in the road. One vehicle, boom, goes forward, stops, and this one initially stops, but then goes a little bit more forward, trying to, corral them in or whatever, I guess you could say. Well, what has that done for this officer right here? Well, that has put these officers back here in his potential crossfire if this guy suddenly lunges at him and runs at him with a knife. Or if this guy turns and lunges at them, this guy is now in the crossfire. So I don't think that it's the best idea to try and run your car past that person to get ahead of them, because it just puts you in the backdrop, or once you get out, the other people who have not caught up to you or gotten up there, it now puts them in the backdrop as well. And it opens up that potential for that person to close the gap and sprint and get at you as you're transitioning out of the car. So that officer could have stopped, went to go get out of the car, and then boom, as he's throwing the car in park, this dude starts running, gets up to that door as that officer is starting to swing out the door, and then boom, he can slam into the officer, pin the officer into the wedge, between the open door and the door frame itself. and then just start fucking stabbing the shit out of him. And the officer has nowhere to go, can't evade, nothing. Kind of a shitty place to be at. So I'm just not a big fan of trying to speed past the person to get in front of them and then get out, because it just opens up all these windows of bad opportunities, I guess you could say. So they're yelling crossfire, and that one officer realizes really quick, oh yeah, I'm in the crossfire. Maybe I should fucking move. So he sprints off that way. And now all the officers are on one side of this guy. The only people downrange of him are people who would be in these apartments and stuff like that.
You got tasers. You got tasers. I will tase you. Put it down. Drop the knife.
So at this point, I don't even think that having to yell those verbal commands of "I will tase you" is even needed. It's gotten to the point where all you should do is just say taser, 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 and deploy fucking taser. Now, as I noted earlier, wintertime can suck for taser deployments because of the thick clothing. And you can see a little bit better view of this guy and what he's wearing.
Drop the knife.
So one taser deployment.
Drop the knife. Drop the knife. Drop the knife.
Two taser deployment.
Watch the crossfire. I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to jail, man.
Sounds like either a third taser deployment or at least an additional cycle being given by taser.
I'm not going to jail, man. Watch the crossfire. I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to jail, man.
So now we have multiple taser deployments. It's obviously ineffective at this point. They know that. And now, because of him doing this charging thing where he's just kind of changing directions at them, he now has these officers surrounding him. And now the crossfire is even worse. Way, way, way worse.
I'm not going to jail, man.
Yo, listen, man. Just take it easy. Drop the knife and we're good. We're good.
Shoot me, man.
Nah, you're good, man. Listen.
So at this point, whoever has deployed their taser and it's ineffective, and especially if they got the two-shot one and they've already deployed twice, there's no need to attempt to send another cycle through the wires. It's pointless. If those two shots did nothing, then continuing to arc the gun and send cycles through the wires to them, it's not gonna change anything. You're just wasting fucking time. So they need to be holstering those tasers and or just dropping them and going to something else. Pepper spray, as I said earlier, I think could have been a good option, but it's hard to say because I don't know what the wind is like in this scenario.
Just drop the knife. Don't take care of it. Don't worry about it. What? Yo, you're good, baby. Drop the knife.
Nah,
We'll
man,
take care of it.
Shoot me. Y'all shut me up.
No, you're good.
Shut me up, man. You shut me up. Y'all know y'all can't shoot me.
Don't do it.
What was that?
Y'all shut me up.
No, you're good.
Shut me up, man. You shut me up. Y'all know y'all can't shoot me.
Don't do it.
Yeah. You're wrong. So why did he say that? Why did he say, y'all know y'all can't shoot me? I think that's in reference to some of the restrictive laws that New Jersey has passed on their police. New Jersey does not appear to be very law enforcement friendly. It's like New Jersey hates their fucking cops. And so they have codified it into law that that it makes it very difficult for police to use the appropriate amount of force, because it stipulates that they have to, go through all these other steps in order to use it. Now, when you talk about use of force continuum and objective reasonableness when use of force is used anyway, Graham versus Connor, all that is already being done by agencies. Like, there's no agency out there that says, yep, deadly force is going to be our first option, fuck all the rest. Like, no one does that. There is a force continuum at all these agencies. There is policies in place about reasonable objectiveness when it comes to use of force. They know that starting out, your uniform is your first level of force, your presence there. And then going to verbal and nonverbal commands, soft hand techniques, OC, hard techniques, taser, baton, firearm. And then somewhere in the mix towards the end there, you can throw in K9 and, pepper ball gun and all that stuff too, right? But New Jersey has taken it a step further and is really, really tying their hands and saying that, almost basically saying you can't skip any of those beginning things. Now, when it comes to objective reasonableness of force, can you always follow step by step? No. There may be some instances where you can go through all the steps in a use of force continuum and be able to follow those. There's other cases where things suddenly and rapidly change to where you can't utilize those other things first. You have to skip those things, or else you're going to fucking die. But New Jersey seems to think that police should 100% try de-escalation first before pulling their gun out. And if you go to New Jersey Attorney General's office and look at their news releases, you will see where they have charged officers for excessive force, even correctional officers on, in the adult and the juvenile side. Lots of cases where they're charging officers in use of force incidents. There was even an article or a news release coming from the New Jersey Attorney General's office where they charged an officer with excessive force for using fucking pepper spray. Fucking pepper spray. A less lethal device. And charged them with excessive force. So, I think that's what this guy is kind of referencing to. Like, he knows that, like, they're supposed to jump through all these hoops before they can ever fire their guns. And that's sad. Because that makes society there a lot less safe. That's almost like with today, modern times with parenting. People ridiculing parents for wanting to spank their kid, or, you can't spank too hard, or, child services can come out and blah, blah, blah. And you compare kids today versus kids, from the 50s, it's night and day difference. There has to be some level of fear for people to act right, and hope as well. And when you look at societies throughout history, and even today, those are the two things that you need to run society: fear and hope. Even look to your household with your kids: fear and hope. The fear is if they do XYZ, they're going to get their ass spanked. The hope is if they do XYZ, Santa will treat them well come Christmas time. Or as they get a little bit older and the Santa thing kind of goes away, other materialistic things can be on the table. Well, if you do good in school, get these grades, you're going to get this newest phone, or you're going to get this, blah, blah, blah. Or if you don't, kind of throwing to the fear aspect, you're going to get grounded if you do X, Y, Z. Society, general public, there needs to be a level of fear with the police. There has to be. Police are like parents for society. If nobody fears them, well, then all hell's going to break loose. Just imagine a household where a kid has absolutely no fear whatsoever of their parents. Can you imagine the fucking shit that would go on? All the broken things, all the stuff thrown around, the tantrums. Whew. And that's what we're seeing in some places here in the country. The criminals no longer fear the criminal justice system. They don't really, some places, fully fear the police. It depends on location, but the fear of the police is starting to degrade. And things are going to get worse, in my opinion. We're going to see more use of force incidents because people they have no fear of the police whatsoever. They feel emboldened and empowered to do what they want because, all this bullshit propaganda out there and all these bullshit fucking curriculums being taught to them, raising little fucking activists, go question the police, get in their face, yell at them, they're just a servant, fuck the pigs, blah, blah, blah. Can't be having that. You can't have in the household the kid saying, fuck the parents, fuck mom, fuck dad, and getting in their faces and yelling and taunting them. And then breaking shit in the house. It don't work. There has to be a level of fear that exists with the police. And unfortunately, that's degrading in some areas. And I think in this video, that's a clear sign of that, especially with New Jersey's laws and how they treat their police there. And this guy saying, I know y'all can't shoot me.
You get the rest of the event?
And Range 1 drive, Range Crest drive.
You got medical down.
Yeah, for shots fired, Range
Right here,
Crest
right
drive.
Hey, I'm up. Here, give me another cup. What do you need? Alright, here we go. What do you guys need? Shut down the road. No. Hey. Yeah, shut that one down. Shut that road over there.
Alright, so they're cuffing him after they've shot him. Some people seem to have a problem with this, or they don't understand why this is being done. No one has x-ray vision, so they can't see what the bullets have done. We don't know if the bullets have completely perforated the heart or the aorta, and there's no chance of them ever getting back up again, or if they've, hit them and they just fell down, hit their head, and have gone unconscious, or even if a round has hit their head, you don't know exactly what that bullet has done. A famous case that is often referenced in training is a case out of Miami, Florida, back in the 1980s with the FBI and a couple of bank robbers. At the beginning of that gunfight, one of the robbers took a round to the head, and it only temporarily knocked them out. And then they were able to wake back up during the middle of this gunfight and get out of their car and attempt to steal the car of an FBI agent. Their partner took a round through the side of their chest. That round was going to be fatal, but it was not immediately physically incapacitating. He also took multiple more rounds from pistol and shotgun to continue to fight, and went on to kill 2 FBI agents and seriously wound and almost killed about 3 more. He too got into that vehicle that his buddy got into and tried to take off on it before Agent Morales came up and dumped more rounds into him. And even the rounds that Agent Morales dumped into them, they were still alive after that. They were physically incapacitated. One had a round hit his spinal cord, so he was not going anywhere. But from the accounts that I've read, they were still alive after that point being in the vehicle. But again, you don't have X-ray vision. You don't know what's going to be going on with them. So that case is referenced a lot. And then also, there's been lots of times where people have been shot and they just get back up. Especially when it's involving pistol caliber ammunition. Because pistol caliber ammunition sucks. It's horrible. It can still do its job and get stuff done. It just doesn't do it very well. And so people are handcuffed so that if they do get back up again and they decide to fight, it's a lot more difficult for them to fight when their hands are cuffed behind their back.
All right, roll over.
Go pulse? No, I think he got hit in the heart. He's gone. I think he got hit in the heart. No pulse.
Back that up again.
Go pulse? No, I think he got hit in the heart. He's gone. I think he got hit in the heart. No pulse.
All right, so he says he thinks he's been hit in the heart. He says he's gone. He's been hit in the heart. Again, you don't have X-ray vision. You have no idea if that's the case or not. It could be that the round went through and hit the guy's aorta. It could be the round went in through his chest. It looks like it hit right up in there. And then it deflected and traveled up and went up through the neck and into the brain. Bullets are unpredictable. You don't know what they're going to do when they go into a medium, such as a person. There's been times where people have been shot square in the chest, and then it deflected and it went down and ended up in their stomach somewhere. Or it fucking just stopped right there in the sternum. There's been times where people have been shot in the head, and the round fucking ricocheted off their head and went the other direction. There's been times where people have been shot in the head, the bullet went under the skin, hit the bone, didn't have enough ass behind it to go through the bone, and instead traveled over top of the skull while still under the skin, kind of like like the old Looney Tunes cartoons with Bugs Bunny, where he would dive into the ground and burrow in, and then you'd see him travel underground, and you see the little earth rise up under it, kind of like a mole. Like, fucking bullets will do that to people's heads sometimes. They'll fucking go under the skin, hit the bone, won't go through, and will travel over top of the skull, under the skin, and then pop out the other side. So bullets are unpredictable. You don't know exactly what they're going to do, and you'll have X-ray vision to see exactly what they've done. When it comes to incidents like this, where a person has been shot and they are now pulseless, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, this is not a recommendation or anything, but in my opinion, I don't think that we should be worried about giving them medical care, because their chances of survival is like at best 2%. There are many places in this country where the ambulance service, under the direction of a medical director who is a physician, and they can make those kind of decisions or make those broad determinations of, hey, this is how we're going to operate. But there's many ambulance services providers out there who, when they get to scenes of like car wrecks or whatever, or there's very traumatic things that have occurred to a person to cause them to have their heart stopped, they don't even bother with trying to do CPR on that person, because they know it's a waste of time. So there's been people who've been involved in car wrecks, and paramedics get there and they check for pulse, nothing. They call them right there. They don't even fucking work on them. Now, other places, they may still work on them. They pull them out, start doing everything, get them on there, get them to the hospital, and then that determination is made at the hospital. I think, like I said, this is my opinion, not a recommendation. I think that it's acceptable to operate like that. Now, going back to the example of the car wreck, some people may say, well, why did they have the car wreck? Did they have a heart attack and then crash? And if that's the case, then yeah, you should still work them. Okay, I can kind of get that argument. But has anyone been doing any chest compressions on them before EMS got there? And we know that EMS has a response time of about like maybe 7 minutes. How long was that person laying there with no ventilations, no compressions going on whatsoever? Probably several minutes. And unless a person is in cold water, your chances of bringing somebody back is not very high. Now, cold water resuscitation, that is a thing. You can have someone drown in, a frozen lake, and they be quote unquote dead for up to 45 minutes to an hour. Pull them out, do CPR, do AD, and then you fucking bring them back, and they don't have any major brain problems. But that's a unique thing. Cases like this, no. Like a person being involved in a car wreck, and the reason they had a car wreck is because they had cardiac arrest while driving, and then they just boom crashed into the tree. Well, they sit there for a long enough time where even if you do get a pulse, the chances of them ever being the same pretty damn low. But this stuff, people being shot multiple times, I personally just don't think that it's worth anyone's time to do any work on them. But the police are not under the direction of a medical director, a physician. What do police have as far as medical stuff? They have training from most likely American Heart Association or American Red Cross. And if it's not one of those two, then regardless of who it is, they mostly all follow the same kind of curriculum, because CPR AED stuff is directed by like this international body. So even in countries where American Heart Association isn't taught, they still follow some of the same key things that's put together by this international body. And these are the bare minimum basic requirements that everyone agrees on. So here on the state side, American Heart and American Red Cross are the two most popular companies that provide this training. And in those trainings, there are permissible times to stop rendering aid to someone or to not render aid to them at all. Number one, scene safety. If the scene's not safe, you don't render aid, right? Like, that's a given. If there's just fucking dude standing around with a gun shooting, you're not going to go over to that person who's laying on the ground and help them, because your ass could be shot too. Electrical lines laying down on the ground and someone's laying down next to them. You're not going to go over there where those electrical lines are, because your ass could end up laying on the ground too. So scene safety is an obvious one. Then once you get to them, are there obvious signs of death? And in those curriculum, obvious signs of death is decapitation. They've been ripped in half. Or there's rigor mortis or livor mortis present. Or there's decomp going on. But it doesn't say because the person's been shot to death. It's just under those I just mentioned. Or fatigue. Doing CPR, you get so fatigued you can't continue on any longer. That's an acceptable reason for stop providing aid. or someone else of higher training gets there and takes over, and then you stop. But when it comes to just withholding care, rigor mortis or obvious signs of death, decapitation, rigor mortis, they're ripped in half. Obviously, we know that someone whose head's been chopped off, there's nothing we can do for them. Same for the people who've been ripped in half. Rigor mortis, they've been dead for too long. Those are easy, tangible things, I guess you could say. When it comes to something like someone being shot to death, that's not listed in there. And this is going to be pretty fresh. So they're not going to have rigor mortis or anything like that. But I think, and I firmly believe, that these bodies, these entities that, have this curriculum should include that. They should include, in cases of a person being shot to death, stuff like that you should be able to have the option not to render medical aid, because the chances of survival are, like, at best 2%. But because that doesn't exist, they still have to do something, even though they all know that what they're doing is a waste of fucking time. Even if this shooting had occurred in a trauma center, the best trauma center in the world, and doctors were to immediately able to start working on him, would this guy had survived? Probably not. Now, I can't say that for sure because I don't know anything about his injuries or anything like that. But probably not. It doesn't matter if you have the best doctors in the world. Some shit you do not survive. And there's a pretty damn good chance that the injuries that this dude incurred, there's nothing that anyone could have done. He was going to die. But like I said, they're not under the direction of a medical director, so they don't get to have that luxury of being able to choose to withhold care. They have to go under what's in their training, and they will provide care. Because if they don't provide care, then the family can maybe have a higher increased chance of having a successful civil suit against the agency for not providing care.
No pulse. No pulse. Start working on him.
So that guy, he recognizes, hey, start working on him. Because, like I said, there's nothing in writing or in training that says, well, this is a case you don't provide care. It's presumed that even if the dude was shot multiple times with a 50 cal machine gun, you still work them. Even though you all know it's fucking worthless, it's not going to do anything, you still work them. Alright, so let's go on to the next body cam. Alright, so this starts with a good number of officers on foot within the apartment complex. So at some point, and it's not clear when, the dude is spotted. And you'll see when these people get up here that one of the vehicles is already there. And then once they get there, you see the vehicles go by. So at what point this guy was detected and how he was detected is just an unknown. But there was a whole group of them, I guess, at his apartment. They were going through, doing the search warrant thing and all that. And they got clued in on the fact he was here, and the fucking cavalry is going there. So let's watch it. You see two down here on this sidewalk this way. And of course, these three, and there's the camera person and a couple behind him, I believe it is. Like, there is a ton, I wouldn't say a ton, but there's a good sizable amount of officers here for this guy. And as I said earlier, I would not be surprised if this is this dude's, multiple run-in with the police, and they know he's a runner and a fighter.
Yeah, it's
Or it could be all these officers didn't want to be on call and decided to, be busy on this call, and so there's like a whole fucking army of them. Sometimes that happens.
Yo, I'm gonna have yeah, that's a lot. Come on.
What's annoying to me is they were there for the search warrant and for the potential of taking this guy down into custody, and yet we do not see anybody with a rifle. I think that is probably one of the biggest failing points is no one has a rifle out and ready to deal with a potential threat like this. It's already become high risk due to the fact they found the gun there and that this dude's not supposed to have it. So logic would say if he's got one weapon he's not supposed to have, then he's good chance he's got another weapon he's not supposed to have, and it could be on him.
Go ahead. Somebody's doing it.
Is he over here?
He's right. Stand up.
I got taser.
We got taser. We got taser.
Put the knife down. I will tase you. Put it down. Drop the knife. Drop the knife.
Put it down.
So this guy, he is very far forward. He is gone so far forward that I think he is at the point to where he does not have realistic lethal coverage for him. Yes, there's other officers back here who have their guns out, but they're nowhere near as being close to this dude as he is. So although there are some officers out there with guns, the fact that he has gone so far forward and has gotten so close to this guy, it's almost an unrealistic expectation for him to have good lethal coverage, accurate lethal coverage. Damn, that is fucking close. Like, holy shit, that is fucking close. I mean, this dude... couple arm lengths away. All this dude has to do is shift and be on this guy. And because of where the lethal coverage is so far back, if this dude shifts and gets on top of him, those officers being so far back, if they fire, there is a very, very high likelihood this officer will be hit. And unfortunately, that has happened in the past. Officers go to fire to protect someone else who's being stabbed by someone, and sometimes though someone else is another officer, and the good guys get tagged as well. Handguns are not very accurate. They're not good fighting guns at all. The only reason handguns are carried on a daily basis is because A, gunfights are not happening every single fucking day. You look at your local agency. When's the last time they've been involved in a gunfight? And if it was recent, think before that. When was the last time they've been in a gunfight? And if you're in one of those unfortunate places like frickin' Los Angeles or Phoenix, someplace like that, and your agency has an officer involved shooting once every 2 weeks or something like that, maybe once a week, think about the population size, how many officers there are. The numbers will look almost like anywhere else in the U.S. So because of that, not being in gunfights every day, that's why pistols are carried. If it was different, if there was officers or agencies getting gunfights every single day, multiple times a day, they would be carrying rifles because they would quickly find out that rifles dominate. But rifles are heavy and cumbersome, and they're just not comfortable and convenient to carry all damn day. You can carry a pistol on you all damn day, and it's comfortable and convenient. And in an exigent circumstance, something that happens rapidly and suddenly without warning, it can work. Is it the best thing? No, absolutely not. You compare pistol to rifle, rifle's going to win every single day. I don't care what kind of argument you try to bring up. Rifle is going to dominate. That is why people say, if you're going to a gunfight, bring a rifle and bring your friends with rifles. So this guy is at a bad situation or a bad position right here. If this bad guy turns and lunges at him, the other officers who do have their guns out aren't going to be able to do shit. They could fire, but there's unfortunately a very high chance of them hitting their own person. Now, if he had someone running up alongside him and they had their gun out, I think this could be a safer tactic or a safer thing to be doing. But because he does not have that lethal coverage to provide realistic coverage, he might as well not even have any lethal coverage at all at this point. Very ballsy move. Not something I would recommend at all. And unfortunately, this is probably something that has occurred before, and it had a fortuitous outcome. Unfortunately, fortuitous outcomes reinforce bad tactics. Just because you got lucky doesn't mean it's a good thing to be fucking doing. You just got lucky that one time. Your ass could have easily been put in a fucking pine box. And he did turn. Look how quick he did that. Like, if he was committed to wanting to murder him, this dude would have been fucked.
What's crossfire?
Super close.
What's crossfire? I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail, man. What's crossfire? I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to jail. Man.
So at this point, this officer has fired both cartridges out of his X2. This taser is completely ineffective at this point. He's not able to do anything else with it. He allows it to continue through its cycle. Personally, at this point, I think it just would have been in his best interest to go ahead and switch that thing off and go ahead and holster it. It's done with. After you fired that second cartridge and there was not an immediate desired effect, you know it's done with.
No, listen, man, just take it easy. Drop the knife, we're good. We're good. You're good, man. Listen, drop the knife, don't sit there. Don't worry about it. Yo, you're good, man. Drop the knife and we'll take everything.
Y'all shut me up.
No, you're good, you're good.
Shut me up, man. You shut me up. I know y'all can't shoot me.
Don't do it.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
You're good, turn around.
Send EMS and ALS. Immediately.
We're in Score Drive. We're in Crest Drive.
You got that?
Yeah, for shots fired. Right here.
Damn, I
Hey, on left.
Here, give me another cup.
I hate when they put the blur box over.
You guys need. Shut down the road. No. Hey, no. Hey. Yeah, shut down one down.
Dude, go wash up. Go.
All right, throw over.
All right, so he told him to go wash up. So he immediately got in there and started going hands-on with the guy when he did not have gloves on. Under some circumstances, yeah, you got to be Johnny on the spot and jump in there and do stuff. You ain't got time to put gloves on. Which is why I think in some scenarios, something like this, where you know there's going to be an increased likelihood of going hands-on with someone or it could lead to that, go ahead and put those gloves on. So we noticed that multiple of these officers already had the blue gloves on. Now, this could be because they were doing the search warrant and they were in there, collecting evidence, whatever, possibly. But some of them, it may not have been like that. They may have known they're going to be going hands-on with this guy once they get to him, and so they went ahead and gloved up. There were multiple other people around who had gloves on, and so I think it would have been a better idea to say, who's got gloves on, cuff them. That way, those people got the gloves on, they're protected, they can get blood on their gloved hands, and it's all good. So now this guy, he didn't have gloves on, now he's going to have to get that blood off of him. And hopefully, during this incident, he didn't hit his hand on something and create a cut or an abrasion on his hand to where he could now potentially have an exposure.
I think you got hit hard. He's gone. I think you got hit hard. No pulse. No pulse.
Start working on him. Use a knife cut.
What's that?
And then it ends. So we can see that there's a decent little amount of glove there, or glove. There's a decent amount, a little bit of blood there on the ground. I don't know. I kind of tend to think maybe, aside from his heart being hit, probably most likely his aorta. I don't know. Just a guess. All right, let's go into the next video. Okay, so here is the other body cam footage. We can see here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cruisers. These could be 6 and 7 over here, maybe. So large police presence here.
They got a Plainsboro guy with him too. What's up? We're going? Go.
I bet this person, if they was like uninvolved in this, can you imagine what they were thinking? Like all these cops start suddenly walking in their direction. They're probably thinking, oh hell, what did I do? Boom, another one.
tase you. Put it down.
Drop the gun. Drop the gun.
Put it down.
I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not. Watch your leg. Watch your leg. Watch fire. I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail, man. Watch the fire. I'm not going to jail, man.
Yo, listen, man, just take it
You
easy.
don't have to do that. We're good. You don't have to do that.
So let's back that up again. Because this guy is the guy I was talking about earlier. Like, he is far out there and up there.
Taser! I will tase you. Put it down.
And so, what is going through his head? I think it's possible that this officer recognizes the fact this dude has a jacket on and that firing into his back is most likely going to be ineffective. So I think that he has in his mind that he's going to try and fire the probes in the opening to the front here to increase his likelihood of making a connection. Which means he's thinking well under stress, but as I noted earlier, he got really far ahead of everyone else and was not in a good position to have realistic lethal coverage.
Put it down.
I'm going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail.
So we have one taser deployment there. It's really hard to see where the probes hit.
Man.
But we can see one that looks like it struck low right down in here because we see it coming off the body there.
I'm not.
But as far as where the other one hit, it's so hard to say.
Jail, man. I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not. Watch your leg. Watch your leg. Watch fire.
So he reaches up and he presses the side button to send another cycle through the wires. That's a waste of time right there. If you did not get an immediate desired effect from the first firing and cycle, then attempting to send another cycle through the lines is not going to work.
I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail, man. Watch the fire. I'm not going to jail, man.
Yo, listen, man, just take it easy.
You don't have to do that. We're good. You don't have to do that.
Nah, you're good, man. Listen, you got the knife, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Yo, you're good, man. You drop the knife and we'll take care of it, yo.
Shut me up.
No, you're good, you're good.
Shut me up, man. Shut me up. Now, no, I can't shoot me.
Don't do it.
Yeah, shot fired, shot fired.
You're good.
Location.
Ravens Court Drive. Raven Crest Drive.
You got that?
Yeah, for shot fired, Raven. Crest Drive.
Hey, unlock.
Look, come here on top. Hey, Pat. What do you mean? You guys need shut down the road. No. Hey. Shut down the road. Yo, shut that one down. Shut down that road over there. Over. Let me get the air.
All right. Let's see the other one. All right. Look at this beautiful looking Durango here. I like the Dodge vehicles. I really do. The Dodge Charger, love it. I got a Charger. But these Durangos, man, I mean, these things are nice. Look at this thing. Sexy. Looks a whole lot better than this ugly ass Ford over here. Nothing wrong with the audio. What the hell is this on his hood? It looks like maybe gloves. Nothing wrong with your audio. His camera's in buffer mode. He hasn't hit record yet.
Drop the knife! Taser! I will tase you! Put it down! Drop the knife! Drop the knife!
I'm not going to jail, nigga. I'm not
Crossfire!
I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail, man.
No, watch crossfire.
I'm not going to jail, man.
Yo, listen, man, just take it easy. Drop the knife and we're good. We're good.
Shoot me, man.
Nah, you're good, man. Listen, just drop the knife and we'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Yo, you're good, man. Just drop the knife and we'll take care of it, yo.
Shoot me. Y'all set me up.
Nah, you're good, you're good.
Set me up, man. You set me up. Y'all know y'all can't shoot me.
Don't do it.
Boy, shots fired, shots fired.
You're good, turn around.
Location.
Alright. Bag this up.
Good. You're good, man.
I'm not going to jail, man.
Yo, listen, man, just take it easy. Drop the knife and we're good.
I'm not going to
I will tase you. Put it down. Drop the knife. Drop the knife.
I'm not going to jail, nigga.
So that right there.
I'm not going to jail, nigga.
Boom. He is coming towards this officer. This officer was already in the clear to fucking smoke his ass right then and there. He didn't. He restrained himself. I mean, realistically, all of them at this point had the ability, not the ability, but they had the right to use deadly physical force.
I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to jail, nigga.
Crossfire! Crossfire!
I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail, man.
Yo, listen, man. Just take it easy. Drop the knife and we're good. We're good.
Look at this motherfucker over here. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Trying to hide in the trees?
Shoot me, man.
Nah, you're good, man. Listen,
Look at him. A fucking ninja over here.
listen. Just drop the knife and we'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. Yo, you're good, man. Just drop the knife and we'll take care of it, yo.
Shoot me. Y'all set me up.
Nah, you're good. You're good.
Set me up, man. You set me up. Y'all know y'all can't shoot me.
Don't do it.
Set me up. Y'all know y'all can't shoot me.
Don't do it.
Yeah, shots fired, shots fired.
Boom. Knife.
You're good.
Location. Raise Court Drive. Raise Crest Drive. 10-4, shots fired. Raise Crest Drive.
Hey, unlock. Yo, give me another cup.
What you guys need? Shut down the road.
So it seems like because this guy was a bigger guy, that he may have had some difficulty in getting the cuffs or that one pair of cuffs to work on the guy. Some people are large, so large to the point where one pair of handcuffs really won't work on them. You just won't be able to get their wrist close enough. I don't think he was that big. I think that one pair of handcuffs could have worked. The issue I see with putting two pair of cuffs on, if they're not that fat of a person, is it can then make it very easy for them to slip their cuffs under their butt and then under their feet and then be able to have their hands in front of them. I've seen chubbier people be cuffed to the back, and even they were still able to slip their cuffed hands over their big fat butt and then under the feet to get their hands to the front. So I'm of the opinion that everyone, unless it is just physically impossible to get one pair on, then everyone gets one pair. So he could have exerted a little bit more force on the arms to get them to come together. That guy who was just standing there, he could have knelt down and helped. He could have, pushed that other arm towards the other arm. That way the wrist would meet and then be able to put those cuffs on. But at the end of the day, is right now, is it that big of a deal? I don't think so, based off the amount of blood that we see has come out of him and the fact that it had a damn near instantaneous desired effect. This is not a case of him being shot once or twice and he is now mentally incapacitated but yet still physically able to do stuff. This is a case where he is very obviously physically incapacitated. Now, like I said earlier, don't have night vision. I'm sorry, not night vision. We don't have x-ray vision. Can't see what the bullets have done, but there are some physical indicators that can kind of lead too strong beliefs. And we can't see because of the blur box, but it could be that this officer has seen enough to where he's got a pretty good feeling this dude's probably not going to get up, but he is still of proper mindset and is saying, basically, I can't see for sure, so I'm putting cuffs on him just to be safe.
Yeah, shut that one down. So I'm not right over there. Go watch it.
So at this point, he said to wash his hands. If you don't have like a big thing of water, or someone else doesn't have a big thing of water that they can pour on your hands, snow, that's a good way to wash your hands. I've used snow before to wash my hands. Just get you a big old handful like you're going to be making a snowball and rub your hands together with it. It starts to melt in your hands. And it is, because it is a more solid kind of material, it can act as like it's not like a really good scrubber, but it's able to, what's the word I'm looking for? It helps agitate, the particulate matter off your hands. So with muddy hands before, I've picked up, snow and rubbed it in between my hands and got my hands wet enough to, kind of cleanse them pretty well. But that would be a hasty way to start cleaning some of that blood off his hands. The best thing is someone's bound to have a water bottle in their car. That would be one of the more preferred ways to get a lot of that blood off. And then once that's done, like, someone's going to have some alcohol bottles for hand sanitizer, and copious amounts of that being poured onto the hands is going to be the next best thing to do that. There are some wipes out there, some cleansing wipes, aside from just like baby wipe style stuff. There's some wipes out there that are able to help kill germs and stuff like that. But the idea is to get that as much blood off the hands as possible, and then pour some stuff on there that's going to kill any of the bad things that's in the blood that you don't want to contract. But even then, at that point, you need to be cautious with what you do with your hands, because that you have not washed your hands under running water for over a minute. So there's a good chance that there's still some contaminants on his hands. So once, in the field, you've been able to kind of do that hasty clean, you should put some gloves over your hands before you start touching anything on your body, especially near your face or anything like that. You just don't want to run that risk. Now, once you've gotten to somewhere and you can take those gloves off, put your hands under a sink, use lots of soap, and you scrub for a good minute, and then cleanse your hands, then your hands should be safe to be able to touch your face, rub your eyes, and stuff like that.
Let me get the air. No pulse. No pulse. Start working on him. Did you? Yeah. All right. You stay with me. What's that?
All right. Now we got the taser cam videos. All right. So here are the taser cam videos.
Taser. Taser. Put it down. Drop the knife. Drop the knife. Put it down. Put it down. Watch your fire. I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to jail, man.
All right, so not much on that one. One of the problems with the taser cam is when you go to get like a two-handed grip on the gun, then that support hand can sort of obscure the camera itself, just because it's at the bottom of the handle itself. Now, I'm sure anti-police people would be like, oh, they're trying to cover the camera up, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not the case. The taser itself is shaped like a pistol, and so it can be instinctual for a person to go grip the thing like a two-handed gun in some instances, and that end up causing, inadvertently, the camera itself to be covered. With the older style taser cams for the X26 Echo models, those things were huge, and they dropped down far enough to where dropped down far enough and protruded out from the bottom far enough to where that wasn't that big of an issue. But because of how big the damn things were, they would catch on things, and that would end up causing the older models to break so often. It would cause enough torque in the handle, it would break the seal, the sonic welding, and then the electricity would follow the path of least resistance and go out the gun in a short circuit. So the newer taser cams for the newer models are not as big and bulky as the other ones, and they're a little bit more slimmer profile. And so that is kind of the downside to that, is since they're slimmer and smaller and shorter, sometimes that support hand can sort of block it. There's no easy way with the newer models to put that camera anywhere else because of its design. Now, the newer taser, the Taser 10, it has its laser and light on top of the gun. Now, I think it's possible that with even these older designs, they could have potentially put the camera in the same kind of area where the laser and light would have come out of, and that would have been a better placement for a camera. But the technology and designing just didn't allow for that. But I think that would have been a better design. Now, I don't know for sure how much different the Taser 10 is in regards to the camera stuff. It's so brand new. I haven't looked at any of it. But I have noticed that they put the laser and the light on top of the gun versus it being in the bottom. So ever since Taser came out, lasers and stuff have always been on the bottom. But this new Taser 10, all that stuff is on top. So I think that even with that style of design, that it would be more, could be more likely that that would be a good place to even put the camera lens at. May not be able to stick all of the camera components inside the gun itself, but you could at least have the camera lens go to that far forward point, and then it could be something that's always in the gun. It's just a matter of whether or not people want to buy the appropriate battery pack that would have the recording stuff inside of it to match with the gun. Anyway, the camera placement on these tasers is just not very optimal, in my opinion, how they're at. I think it would have been a whole lot better design to put them around where the lasers and lights were, because that would be far enough away from any fingers getting in the way.
Drop the knife! Put down! Put down!
So the dude's got a water bottle, his phone, and a knife. And that's about it on what we're going to see with this one. So we'll go to the next Taser Cam video. Alright, the last video.
Down! Drop the gun! Drop the gun! Put it down!
I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail, man.
Let's see it again.
Down. Put it down.
Look how just fucking close this guy is. Like, man, if this dude was any more of a determined attacker, he's so damn close. He could murder this officer. It's just, ugh.
I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail, man. I'm not going to jail, man.
All right, so that's about it on being able to really tell anything about the taser cam videos. Unfortunately, this is kind of a common thing with taser cam videos. When you have a camera stuck to a device like that and you're running around, it's a lot of shaky camera movement. Sometimes it ends up just capturing the ground because they'll raise the gun up, fire the probes, and then once the probes have been fired, you don't have to keep that gun pointed at them, right? Like, it can be swung down, and then you can actuate the trigger, depending on the model. You know, you can actuate the trigger to send another cycle through, or hit the side button and the arc button, and it'll send another cycle through. So sometimes when that's done, the gun's not even pointed at the person. It's just pointed at the ground. And so, unfortunately, you just end up catching or capturing the ground on film a whole lot. And then sometimes the hands kind of get in the way. So taser cam footage is just not always the greatest. And I think that's also why, or partly why, some agencies just don't mess with them anymore. They figured out from the first generation of taser cams that they don't capture that great of footage anyway. And then some of them, I think, probably still have a poor taste in their mouth from the first generation of cameras and how they broke tasers so often. All right, so that's it on this video. It seems like to me at first that maybe this guy was doing suicide by police, but it's hard to say if that's for sure, if this guy was doing what he was doing to try and find a window of opportunity to escape from them. Like, he thought legitimately in his head if he could scare them away enough, get a window, he could somehow get away from them and outrun them. Some grandiose thinking on his part if that's the case, but there's really no full way of really knowing it. The suicide by police thing, you know, yeah, his actions kind of support that, but also his attempting to escape actions don't support that. Like, if he was really committed to wanting to die, then why is he trying to escape from them? Like, why did he go one direction and then try to, you know, go this direction and get away from them? And then, so I don't know. It's hard to say. Can't ask him because he died. Obviously, can't read people's minds through video, so it's unknown like what the heck's going on. Alright, that's it. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.